Hey, everybody, and welcome to the 5 Bytes Podcast. I'm your host, Rory Monahan. Coming up on this week's episode, it's going to be a special episode. This is my annual review of the year that was 2024, and I'll also do something a little different this year. I'll look a little bit into the future of just kind of some of my insights or opinion on what may be coming in 2025. As always, the episode is brought to you by my sponsors, and that includes Numescent, the inventors of the first and only cloud-native container management platform for Windows desktops. And also brought to you by Master Packager, who make an application packaging software that helps you build packages that end users love, enterprises want, and the Windows OS needs. If you enjoy the show each week, you have these awesome sponsors to thank. And now for this special New Year episode. Okay, folks, I'm going to try to keep this as concise as I possibly can, in keeping with what the podcast was originally supposed to be, which is a short form kind of weekly recap of enterprise IT news. But what it has morphed into has been a much longer form than I anticipated. And if you listen to the podcast regularly, I usually do this annually. I kind of do a review of the big news stories for 2024 that I covered on the podcast. But this year I'm doing something a little different. I'm going to also talk a little bit about 2025. So yeah, let's get things started. Clearly, 2024 was a year of disruption in our industry. With the acquisitions of Citrix and VMware EUC, many large enterprises have been faced with increased licensing costs and difficult decisions to make around their license renewal. These acquisitions has rocked some of the long-standing pillars of enterprise IT and end-user computing, and we have certainly witnessed increased interest in Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365 Cloud PCs amongst all enterprises. And this is perhaps not that surprising because really out of the alternatives to, say, a VMware Horizon or Workspace ONE and Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktops and Citrix DAS is going to be the Microsoft solutions. Now, while I say that, it's been interesting to see the way those organizations have moved since those acquisitions. Citrix's acquisition actually closed before VMware EUC's because VMware decided to divest their EUC a little bit later and then sold it off to KKR later. Then Tibco acquired the Citrix branch and then made it part of the Cloud Software Group. So we could see from what's happened at Citrix, their intention was to invest in development of their core product stack. And it actually seems to be the case because, at least in recent memory, just my memory, it seems like new enhancements and features within the Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktop and Citrix DAS have been coming hot and heavy at a much greater rate than perhaps in the past. They also seem to have made some key acquisitions this year, which are very much focused on that core product offering. So we saw that they acquired Uber Agent. They also acquired Strong Network just toward the end of 2024. And they also acquired Device Trust. So some very interesting and probably apt acquisitions on the part of Citrix. Now, on the VMware EUC side, they've rebranded to Omnissa. And during the year, they had a launch event of sorts for what they were going to be developing and bringing to the market, which is essentially like a smart workspace. There hasn't been a whole lot on details or just like the meat and potatoes of what that is going to bring. So at the moment, on that front, it seems pretty marketing heavy, but it will be interesting to see what it is they bring to the market. Perhaps they're going to differentiate themselves from a Citrix and from a Microsoft in a way that they can get their own slice of the market that's looking for a specific type of workspace. For their part, I believe it was either 2024 or 2023 where Microsoft had actually given some figures around the growth of Azure Virtual Desktop. And there's been a lot of chatter just within the community that Azure Virtual Desktop is one of the highest grossing, or I guess fastest increasing forms of revenue within the Azure offering. And I can only imagine that there's organizations who perhaps were historically Citrix customers or even VMware Horizon customers who got the sticker shock and they're like, oh, we need to quickly pivot to Azure Virtual Desktop or maybe to Windows 365 cloud PCs. And they tried to maybe get to there and have a minimal viable product of a desktop that their employees could use over on these different platforms, but they face challenges. And that's no surprise because working in enterprises, that always happens. Going to a new OS, going to a new desktop platform, there's challenges, and a lot of those challenges are around the profile and the user data, but also the applications. So there's a lack of agility and investment from a lot of vendors in terms of modernizing application management. But I'm not here to beat that drum today because obviously I have a vested interest in that since my employer is also show sponsor New Method. But this year also saw the shocking CrowdStrike Falcon sensor update that caused widespread system crashes across the globe, leading to disruptions in many industries, including banks, hospitals, and airlines, with Delta Airlines experiencing flight disruptions for days. And eventually, they filed a lawsuit against CrowdStrike, which has yet to be settled. So in 2025, we can expect that story to continue. It was, of course, a big year for artificial intelligence, with Gen AI usage jumping from 55% in 2023 to 75% in 2024, according to a report shared by Microsoft at Ignite 2024. Microsoft also announced Copilot Plus PCs that are capable of supporting some of the new AI features being made available in Windows 11, including a feature called Recall that essentially turns all PC activity into a timeline that can be searched and queried using AI. Unfortunately, due to security concerns raised by the community, the feature was delayed and only entered preview in November of 2024. Other players in the market, such as Google and of course the market leader OpenAI, went from strength to strength in 2024, with OpenAI making big announcements at the end of the year, such as the launch of their generative AI video creation service, Sora, and a $200 per month subscription plan for the latest 1.0 model that promises to be faster and more reliable than previous models. It seems like their biggest competitor that's kind of nipping at their heels a little bit is Claude Anthropic, and they announced a partnership with Amazon Web Services. So it seems like it's going to be interesting pitting the large cloud vendors in Microsoft, Google, and AWS against each other also in the AI space, with Google obviously having their own suite of AI products such as Gemini. Also, they've been embedding their AI into their tooling like Google Search, like the G Suite, if it's even still called that. I think it's called Google Workspaces now. AWS now has this Anthropic tie-in, and obviously Microsoft, with their Copilot offering, is very closely partnered with OpenAI. So it seems like certainly a three-horse race at the moment. It was anticipated that in 2024, the adoption rate of Windows 11 would grow considerably, and as we inch closer to Windows 10 end of support in October 2025, it seems like that has not significantly happened. While Windows 11 adoption did increase each month for at least 6 months of 2024, the adoption rate has been lower than some would have hoped. One of the biggest blockers being cited is hardware incompatibility, which many believed would not be as big of a problem as it has been. Late in the year, there were outlets reporting that Microsoft was going to loosen the requirements for Windows 11 by no longer requiring a TPM version 2, but that does not seem to be the case, as it is still part of the base requirements at the time of this recording. They just simply put out an article essentially outlining that you can indeed install Windows 11 on unsupported hardware, but they warned that those who choose to do that may not receive security updates. So really, if you do choose to do that, unfortunately, 2024 was another bad year in terms of the employment market for the tech industry, with massive layoffs at vendors such as Dell and Intel. But a recent study by Robert Half suggests that almost half of employers or hiring managers surveyed in the IT and tech industry suggests that they are going to be hiring for permanent positions in 2025, and around a quarter are also going to be hiring contractors. So there is a little bit of hope that things improve on the job market in 2025. Now, while 2024 was a truly roller coaster ride in our industry, As we embark on the new year, I thought it might be fun to talk a little bit about what else we may anticipate for the year ahead with 2025. Well, touching on one of the last topics first, 2025 is now going to be a crunch year for many enterprises as they will need to get Windows 11 in place in less than a year, at a time when many organizations have been reducing their headcount. Of course, enterprises can avail of extended security updates, but that means they'll then have to take a chunk out of their budget in order to keep Windows 10 limping along. They could possibly get free extended security updates by implementing Windows 365 cloud PCs, but again, that would mean they have to take money out of their budget to invest in those Windows 365 cloud PCs. I've also been wondering and speculating on this podcast. I wonder if some techies out there may be hedging their bets and holding out for a Windows 12 release. You know, the whole cadence and kind of nature of how Windows desktop OSs has gone. You know, you go from XP to Vista. Nah, skipping Vista. We'll go to Windows 7. Windows 7 to Windows 8 or 8.1. Nah, we'll go to Windows 10. Windows 10 to Windows 11. Nah, we'll go to Windows 12. But at the moment, at the time of this recording, there's no Windows 12. There's only been speculation about it and nothing confirmed by Microsoft. But it would make sense for Microsoft to announce a Windows 12 soon, one that has been developed with AI features built right from day one, rather than trying to wedge AI features into this Windows 11 and then make them available via the Copilot Plus PCs. You know, if they announce a Windows 12 and possibly give some sort of lenience on Windows 10, maybe organizations would start to budget for capable hardware for a Windows 12 with those AI features and plan to migrate further afield. But at the moment, that is not on the cards. But I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens. Although it's just as likely that they'll say, you know what, move to Windows 11, we'll still announce Windows 12, but we're going to take your money for the extended security updates while you move to Windows 12. Further in the EUC space, I'm sure Microsoft will continue to grow their presence in 2025 within the Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365 space, with the latter receiving more and more marketing focus from the company. While Microsoft will certainly be riding a wave, it is too early to write off the others. Like I said, Citrix has been ramping up their development efforts, and Omnissa could be offering some pretty unique features that might make them stand out in the market. After the CrowdStrike Falcon sensor update gone wrong, Microsoft established an initiative with some of their key security vendor partners and have reportedly been working on a strategy to reduce the number of products or agents running in kernel mode. I suspect any change to force products out of the kernel will take some time and will have to be handled with care. I anticipate we will hear an update about this in next year, but not entirely sure we will see the fruits of the labor within the next 12 months. 2025 should be a huge year for ARM processors, and I'm not sure those organizations doing hardware refreshes will be switching en masse just yet. You know, there's a lot of organizations who bought new hardware kind of out of sync with their usual hardware refresh in 2020 to enable work from home at the beginning of the pandemic. And maybe they're doing their hardware refresh next year and they've already got it budgeted. They may not have budgeted for machines with ARM processors just yet, but it's certainly going to be something that is gaining mainstream attention. And to align with this, we can expect third-party vendors to embrace ARM processors by making their applications compatible. And fortunately, Microsoft has been doing a stellar job of working with these vendors to streamline that transition. 2024 was obviously another year of just rampant cyber attacks. And yeah, there's no change in that I can see. You know, obviously Microsoft is bringing security hardening to the operating systems, and they're going to further do this with the changes to what can run in the kernel mode. But I mean, that's not going to be, a silver bullet that's going to solve all our security problems. Cyber attacks are likely going to increase in frequency going forward, and the rate to get machines patched before becoming prey for those cyber gangs is probably going to continue to be shorter and shorter, so organizations are going to have to patch faster and faster. Now, luckily, Hot Patch has been announced for Windows 11, and it's currently in preview, I believe. So in 2025, hopefully that feature becomes generally available, and that should ease the patching of at least the Windows operating systems And if you modernize the way you manage your applications, those other third-party applications that you currently use that require reboots may also just been taken care of, so you can patch more timely without causing as much disruption. Well, this has already gone longer than I wanted it to. I didn't cover absolutely everything, but I hope you enjoyed this kind of wrap up. And thank you so much for continuing to support and listen to the podcast. I'll catch you on the next episode.